went live together about like a year and a half ago, and we were talking about how we wanted to do that again. So here we are.
Yes, I'm excited to be on your podcast. I've been listening to all your episodes and they're so great.
Thanks, Briana.
You're welcome.
Give us a quick overview about you and your account.
Hi, I'm Briana. I'm going into my seventh year as a school psychologist. My account on Instagram is at Educationally Psyched. I am just making the switch to being a high school psychologist. I've been mostly in elementary school. My last school was a K through 8. Never been in high school before, so that's my new adventure these days. I'm a bilingual school psychologist. I was trained in San Diego, where my school program had a bilingual grant, although there's no formal bilingual certification for California yet. But I present myself as a school psychologist because I have that training.
Which language are you bilingual in?
Spanish, which is very, very
Okay.
helpful in California.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Let's talk about your Instagram first. How long ago did you start that? Do you remember?
I think at the end of the 2022 school year, 21,
Okay.
22.
So not that long ago, but your presence has been really big, and it feels like, I'm sure other people feel this way too, like you've been a part of the School Psych Instagram community for a while now because you're so involved and your presence is so there and so big.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean it. Yeah. So I like thinking, oh, it's only been like maybe 1 to 2 years. Like I feel like I've
Yeah.
known you a little bit longer now. What motivated you to start your Instagram page?
There was a couple things. So first of all, as many school psychologists can relate to, I felt like no one really knew what I did for a job. And I just felt like school psychologists have so much training and so much knowledge to share. And I just really wanted, maybe a little selfishly, like my family and friends to know what I did and all the great stuff we did, but also, the broader community, educational community to know what school psychologists can do. So it was that. The other part was, and this is by no means a reflection of your account or anyone that existed on Instagram before I came along, but I just felt like when I would go on Instagram and look for content about school psychology or special education, it was very much like polarized. So there would be parent advocates and lawyers all preaching to parents about, how to prepare for battle more or less with the school. And then there were other accounts for education, like teachers or speech pathologists, or even a few psychologists, where it was more just like lamenting the fact that we had all this like stress dealing with families and dealing with teachers. And I just really didn't see as much as I would like to see of just like helpful content to just unite everybody and work together. So I really wanted to have my account to be a space for that, where it wasn't just psychologist centered and it wasn't just parent centered, but kind of everybody together to learn.
A collaboration between everyone. Like you want to have educational material for school psychologists, but also for parents and all the different parties involved to come together and understand each other better. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of how I see my role as a school psychologist in general. I see myself much more of like a facilitator than an expert, just because, I mean, obviously we know a lot about a lot of different things or a little about everything. But I really like connecting other people to other resources and getting the conversation going among different parts of the school team or the outside team. I aim to do that with my Instagram as well, just having like a place where everybody can talk and it's for everybody and the barrier of entry is very low. So everyone feels like that they can access it and gain something from it.
I love that. And I think that that is how our job is supposed to be. Like, yes, we're the experts in certain areas, but really, because we're not always only working directly with the student, we're working with the people in their lives to help them. We have to be able to facilitate conversations and build relationships and gain like support from all the parties in their lives. Like, yes, our main focus is the kid, but to help them, we have to kind of help everyone else and get everyone on the same page. So I love that
Absolutely.
about your account. Yeah.
Thanks.
There is so much contention in our job
Mhm.
and in our field. And so being able to provide that education for people who are seeking it, but also, again, not just for school psychologists, so that hopefully one day our field won't be as contentious and people will understand each other better.
Yeah, and also I do think that it's important, again, as not being like presented as the expert here. It's like I ask questions all the time on my account and get people's opinions or like their expertise in a certain area. And I want it to be okay for school psychologists not to have to be like knowing everything and, being the expert on anything. Like it's a good thing to come and not know something and ask questions and continue to learn because I feel like I learn something new every single day on the job and on Instagram and connecting with people. So I try to model that for people too, because, I think that would add a little level of humility to our profession as well, because I
Oh
know that's a
yeah.
complaint about us.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it's a two-way street. There's like one, the complaints, probably do have some truth to it because we're really taught like you're the expert, we're the expert, and you know what you're doing, which is helpful in some cases. Part of that is true. We do have very specific training that's in depth that other people really don't have. They just might not realize the level of training that we have in it. So it's both. Yes, but I totally agree with you on not coming to the table with a mindset of I'm the expert. I know what's going to happen here and I'm making the decisions. I hope there aren't a lot of school psychologists like that. It's hard to know sometimes which one it is. Is it the psychologist or the person who's talking bad about the psychologist
You
on,
know,
in the online community? But I agree with you. And that's something I tell people, my followers all the time too, especially new students, grad students, is it's okay not to know. And it's actually better to
Mhm.
not pretend that you know and to ask the questions or to say, that's a great question. Let me get back to you. I'm going to look around, find the answer for you and definitely get back to them. But don't pretend to know. That is actually way worse than not knowing.
Exactly. Yeah, that is something that's such a freeing piece of advice too, that once that really clicks with you, it changes your career forever because then there's not that anxiety of, oh my God, what do I do if they ask me a question I don't know? That weight is what really weighs a lot of us down. And so once you realize that you can say, let me check on that. I want to make sure I get you the right answer. And so I'm just going to talk to my program specialist, my director, to make sure I can come back to you with the exact right answer.
Or
And
give me
and
a moment
parents
to think about that,
yeah, and
you
parents
know?
really respect that. I've never had a parent come back to me or a teacher come back to me or anyone saying, "Oh, you don't know." Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as long
Yeah.
as
I
you
mean,
present it
yeah.
in a professional way.
There's probably certain things that if you said you didn't know might not come off very well. So you do have to be careful with that. But it's okay, also like on the spot to be like, I'm having a really hard time putting my words together, my thoughts together on that right now. Give me a moment and let me get back to you. As long as you have the basics down, which you should through grad school in a couple years. Yeah, it's okay not to know. I agree with you. It's definitely a lot of pressure, I think, from our field and grad programs, again, with that mindset of you're the expert.
Mm.
And I know this is not what we came on to talk about. I knew this was going to happen. We're going to offshoot into 100 different topics. This is why we love talking. Contentious IEP meetings, right? I think that's also the stressful thing, especially when there's lawyers and advocates. People get kind of frozen and clammed up. Like, what happens if they ask me something and I don't know how to answer it perfectly? So, back to your advice, like, it's okay to not know and to say, like, I don't have the answer for that right now. Let me think about it.
Hmm.
All
Absolutely.
right, let's get back to educationally psyched. So, what states have you worked in, and is that the state you're currently in?
Just California. I did my training in San Diego, my internship. I've been in the Bay Area ever since. Different parts of the Bay Area. I've been at a few different districts, but training San Diego up in Northern California ever since.
I know we've talked about this 1,000 times. Things are so different between states. What I do want to ask you is, did you find a difference between your training in Southern California and your practice in Northern California?
I wouldn't say anything like too glaring. I think that's mostly the same. I've actually worked, this is an annoying acronym that probably other states don't have, but we have SELPAs. But between SELPAs, there'll be different ones by county or by like area, depending on how big it is. And so I do find differences between those. And I've worked actually in a couple different SELPA areas. So there'll just be like minor changes like, oh, what IEP system do you use? And then you have to get used
Right.
to that database and forms and like little things like administrative things. But overall, nothing like too big of a difference between Northern and Southern California, but definitely
Yeah.
across states, which is
Oh,
something I
yeah.
talk about on my account a lot of the time too.
Yeah. I think that I knew that before coming on Instagram, but coming to the Instagram community is where I really saw, and I guess Facebook too, like the huge differences between states because I don't think it's talked about that much in grad school. Like grad school, it's like, this is the law. And then you don't realize, like, oh, I'm learning my state's law. Yeah, you learn the
Mm.
federal too, but really you get deep into the state law.
I have these discussions a lot on my account because this is another thing I've noticed where someone that maybe isn't a school psychologist or doesn't understand that there's differences between the states will state something as a fact of this is how
Hmm.
it's always done. And then you get really angry people being like, no, that's not how it works. And you have to kind of zoom out and look at the broader perspective of that might actually be true for you, but it's not true for this person in this state. And so
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned. I think I talked to you about this once, where especially in the beginning of having an account, I would say, like, these are the 13 federal categories or whatever it is, or like, these are the 13 categories. And then someone will say, well, actually, there are 14. And then I would have to start putting little disclaimers on mine. This is how it works in California. And so I've gotten much better
Right.
at knowing that when I share something, I have to say, this is how it works in California. And yeah, you get the people that are like very upset to say, like, no, that's not
Hmm.
how it works. You're telling people the wrong information. So just being
Yeah.
always aware that it's different.
And I do wish that grad schools did a better job of explaining that to grad students because I don't think that part was really hammered in that well, even in my program, not that long ago, and a very good program in California. So I'm guessing also from just what I've seen online, it's not really commonly shared that like we're just teaching you your state for the most part. Know that other states can interpret the federal law differently and apply it differently because you do get a lot of arguments even up between school psychologists like what are they talking about. It's like, hey, you might not even be talking about your state's law, you might be talking about your district's policy and not even realize it because you've only been in that district. So it is
Yeah.
absolutely insane how different things are. And so, like you, even like on my podcast, every single episode, I feel like I'm repeating myself saying, disclaimer, disclaimer, like,
Yeah.
hey, things might be different. Sorry. It's so hard to talk about school psychology on a national level. So that brings me to another question for your account. Like, what are some things that people might not realize, pros and hardships of running a school psychology Instagram account or,
Mm.
an educational Instagram account?
Well, for sure, the pro is being able to connect to so many super smart, interesting, funny psychologists and other educators across the country and, other countries too. I've met so many great people, you included, and I just feel like I have become a better school psychologist for it.
All right, guys, I've got some great news for you. If you're looking to be an efficient and organized school psychologist, School Psych Finds has you covered. I have ready to use forms and an organization course that's tailored specifically to school psychologists so you can spend less time dealing with the administrative part of our job and figuring out how to stay organized and manage all your paperwork, and more time doing what you love, like connecting with your students. I'll leave all the details to the course and the forms in the show notes.
So that is just such a pro. And yeah, even just people to like vent to and laugh with is also good. So it's not just for the information, it's also just like the community and the camaraderie too. The negative, I would say, is that, you can't please everybody. And I'm definitely one of my weaknesses or things I'm working on is being a people pleaser. And so, you think that you're putting out this really balanced content that can be appreciated and valued by everyone, like that would be great. But, there are going to be people that don't like what you have to say. And I've gotten not like into any arguments with people, but trying to explain that I had a different intention than what they took it as, and we'll go back and forth a little bit. And you just have to get over that, and that's hard for
Yeah,
me.
I'm with you there. I sometimes think I might be a people pleaser myself too. I try not, I'm like, no, no, but I probably am. I think we're really alike in a lot of ways, and that's
Mhm.
probably one of them. I think anything social media, anything that's like not face to face, you're going to get that negative feedback. I feel like Instagram has overall been a pretty safe community. I was talking to School Psych Memes, not saying the name of the person, about that. And yeah, it's just true. Behind a screen, like people are much more willing to be rude and leave kind of negative, hateful things that they might not come up to you in person and say right to your face or make assumptions right off the bat. It's like you create one Instagram post or a couple or a reel, and suddenly people feel like, oh, those 20 seconds that you spent explaining that topic must represent your entire view on a topic, and that they
Hmm.
know exactly what you meant. So that can be hard, but I think we get more positive than negative for
Oh,
sure, and that
absolutely.
helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like going off what you said, it's like you get 30 seconds, a minute to explain something, which is really hard. I don't think people understand that. Like when I'm going over a very nuanced topic, but I want to give you just like the basic summary of what you need to know, I really have to condense a lot of stuff into this small video. And so you have people saying, like, you forgot this. What about this? What about this? And it's like, I wish I could go through all of that for you. But a lot of these topics, I would need, a couple hours to present everything there
Grad
is to
school, a
know.
whole grad school
A whole
program, maybe.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely a lot of things like behind the scenes that people who don't run accounts don't see, but that's natural with any profession, anything you do, right? You don't see everything that goes into it. But I think it's nice to bring some awareness to that is like, yes, we're school psychologists and we run these accounts for fun, but that, there it does sometimes there's some other stuff behind the scenes that you might not realize. So please be nice. But I do find I love our community. I think we probably get less hate than other creators outside of school psychology. It's a very niche community.
Because my account is like less, I mean, I don't know if I'm entertaining at all, whatever, but it's less entertaining. It's in the name, educationally psyched. It's a very
Right.
educational account. So I just feel like most people that are just like browsing Instagram are not going to be attracted to my content. They're going to think it's dry. They're going to think it's boring. So I really don't
Hmm.
have the wide reach of someone that's like doing funny things where like random people might end up being shown
Comment
their
mean
video.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like, "Oh, what are you wearing?" Like, yeah. Well, actually, speaking of what are you wearing, there are some bullies online that talk about what you wear, but those people will be unnamed, but they will know when they listen
Oh,
to this
I was
who we're
like,
talking about.
that took me a second. I was like, wait,
Yep.
someone said something, and then I realized, it's your own
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
He
It's
knows,
always them.
he knows who he is.
Okay, so you were talking about that you're transitioning to a high school.
Yes.
Have you worked in a high school before? What settings have you worked in typically?
So, what I loved about my grad program, and I think some others do this too, but from the very first year of our program, we were put in schools. So, we had practicum assignments. And I do believe my first practicum assignment was a high school, but that was only for a semester. I was much younger then. But so that was my only experience with high school. And so I really haven't worked in a high school before. Most of the time I'm in elementary schools and I've been in two K through 8s and one just middle school. But I would say if I were to present myself as, people say, I'm an elementary school psych, I'm a middle school psych, I would have said, I'm an elementary school psychologist, which was why the move to high school has been a little bit jarring for me. I shared a lot of that journey. Like it is a reality of our profession. I got a lot of information from different psychs from different areas about what exactly their process is for assigning schools. And I got
Hmm.
some really good ways that districts handle that. And I wish, all there was more of a uniform way or like, it was in a contract of if they're going to move you, then
Right.
they need to inform you by this date and they have to get your opinion or whatever, just more laid
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
because it
Hmm.
was a shock to me. And, they have their reasons. I have accepted it. I'm not at all upset with them. I think actually now I've seen it as this really good opportunity for growth. And I know you were working in a high school, so we've talked about it too. And so I'm getting excited about it. But yeah, I just never thought of myself as a high school psychologist.
Yeah, and the good thing about our job usually is that you try something out. Let's say you're like, no, high school is fine, but I really prefer elementary. Like you can push and advocate for that and hopefully eventually go back to elementary if that's where, your true calling is, but I do think you're going to really enjoy it. And like you said, it's going to be a really good learning experience, even if at the end of the day, your bread and butter are the little ones, the cuddly cute ones, but it's going to be fun. But I'm biased because I absolutely loved high school. And so I think like if I was all of a sudden told I'm going back to elementary, I think I would feel the same way you do, which is, I still love those kids and I still enjoy my job there, but I desire to be at high school. But we'll see where your journey takes you and what you think, since you haven't really had that full high school experience yet.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about our job too, is that it's never boring. There's always new stuff to do, new stuff to learn. Like even if you go from one elementary school to another one, that's a whole different job a lot of times too. So I do
Yeah.
like that about our job, that I'm always learning and doing something different. And I think if I were I've never been at one school for longer than 3 years, so I don't even know what that's like. But I do think, being able to change is a positive because, you never get bored and you're always growing.
Yeah, there's so much turnover in schools too, but I think psychs get moved a lot. Like you saying, I've never been somewhere more than 3 years. I bet you a ton of school psychologists relate to that. And there's probably psychs who've never even been somewhere for 3 years,
Yeah,
which is kind of sad because then that also affects like how the other staff view us because they're like, oh, it's going to be someone new next year. So who cares? And every
exactly.
psych is different. Like, yes, we follow the law, but it is also what's the term that I'm looking for? It's like a scientific art might be the best way to explain what a psychologist is, right?
I
Like, yes,
like
there's
that.
theory and training, but it's also very subject to interpretation. But, even if you go to a doctor, you get a second opinion, you might get told something different. So,
Totally. I do think that we get that reputation, and I had that conversation too with people on my account, that it's like the teachers and the admin get very frustrated with psych sometimes because it's like, oh, why build this relationship with them? It's just going to be a new person that's going to come along and change how we do everything the next year. And I really think that if I could tell anything to special ed admin, is to really appreciate the time and energy that goes into a psych building relationships at their school, and having them in one place is a positive. There's a lot that can be gained from someone staying in the same place.
I don't know about your district or in California specifically, but there's different reasons that psychs get moved and due to different administrators. So, like in my district, it has nothing to do with the specific school that I'm at or any of the administrators there. It has to do with my psychology department
Hmm.
and how many psychs there are and how they're going to be able to spread things out,
Totally.
which
Yeah.
is goes back to our shortages and one reason why it's hard to be a school psychologist.
Yeah, they have like the bigger picture in mind, obviously, and so they're trying to like place everybody so all the missing pieces fit, and it's all about like allocations of hours change from year to year. I don't know. So they have a lot to
But at
think
the end of the
about.
day, Brianna wanted her elementary school. So
I
come on,
did.
give it to her. She's a good psych. Her elementary school probably wanted her too.
They
But
did. They
okay,
cried. Just
I
kidding.
bet they did. Yeah, no, I bet they were sad. And I think, it goes back to like, well, when you have a good fit, you're a good fit for the school and the school's a good fit for you. I really do wish that districts would, I hope that they really consider that and try really hard to keep those because it's not all that common for both to align, the psych to be happy and the school to be happy with the psych.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to talk about just briefly why the cliche question, Brianna, why did you become a school psychologist?
I always wanted to be a psychologist since freshman year of high school. I know some people are like, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up and they change it a bunch. Like I was laser focused on being a psychologist ever since freshman year of high school. I worked at a teen crisis hotline and just loved it. I volunteered there for all 4 years of high school. I ended up being the one to train new volunteers by the
Wow.
end. So it was just amazing. We took crisis hotline calls about any number of topics. So I was just like, this
See,
is
you're
my
prepared for high school. You're going to be amazing.
okay, okay. I'm starting to believe it. If people keep telling me that, then I start believing it more.
Go, Brianna.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just loved psychology. I thought it was so interesting. I'm like, this is my calling. So in school, they don't really go over what kind of careers you can have in psychology. So I just thought, you're a clinical psychologist and that's pretty much it. Or you become a psychiatrist and go to medical school. So I really didn't know. It's actually really interesting, though. I found out. So my grad program was in San Diego, and in their undergrad psychology program, they actually make every psych major take, I think it's a symposium where they go through the careers in psychology that you can have. Because a lot of people take psychology as
Wow.
like a default major. They're like, psych is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And they don't ever want to be a psychologist or they don't know what they're going to do with it, but it's kind of
Is
just
there anyone that's not interested in psychology? Probably not.
I
Yeah.
know it's so
Right?
fascinating.
It's like,
So I think that they hope to give people more direction by having them take this class. And they actually learned what a school psychologist was their freshman year of being in a psych
wow.
major, which is crazy because I had no idea that you could be a school psychologist. I didn't know that was a career. Hopefully, now that more of us are on social media, people are growing up knowing what a school psychologist
Yeah.
is. But
It's all to our hard work.
yeah, we'll take the credit. But anyway, so I just went through college, was a psych major, and then I ended up teaching after school. And I taught in kindergarten, and I loved working in a school. Didn't love being a teacher. And I feel like I've talked
Okay.
to people about this, and absolutely nothing against the teaching profession. There was things I liked about it, but there were things that I was like, this is not really my calling. And I had my first student that needed to be assessed in kindergarten because as a kindergarten teacher, sometimes, a lot of times, we're the first person
Mm-hmm.
to see kids in the school setting. And so we do a lot of like, I wonder if they need support. I wonder if they could be connected to this person. So I worked with a school psychologist for the first time to help him get the support he needed. And I fell in love with the idea of doing that. And I was like, how did you become this job? I want to be this job. And then I talked with her about it and applied for grad programs. And that's how I became a school psychologist.
I know this is cheesy, but that kind of gave me the chills because that made me think like you must have had, I hope, a really good school psychologist at your school.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Like, we worked together to come up with behavior supports. I had to fill out a million rating scales like
So
teachers
you've
have
seen
to
the
do.
other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally empathize with teachers now because they're like, I feel like it just asked me the same question over and over again. Because, like, that's what I said to her. I'm like, did it really need to
Mm-hmm.
be 130 questions long? Like, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I kept answering the same thing in different
Mm-hmm.
ways. And now I know
Well,
why we do that.
a lot of people think we create those surveys that we send them. Like
Yeah.
I put a disclaimer in, I send my rating scales electronically now. And I put a disclaimer at the bottom of all of mine, basically saying, some questions might be repetitive, they might seem strange. Like I didn't create these questions. They're standard. It's a standardized survey. Please answer them to your best ability.
Hmm.
Because sometimes you even get parents or teachers like upset and angry. Like, why are you
Hmm.
asking? Why are you assuming like the bass asks, like, does your child like set fire to things or steal things? And why would you be asking me that? It's like, technically, I'm not asking you that, but it's good to know just in case you don't know unless you ask. So
Yeah. And you have to think about it too from like the teachers or the parents' perspective. It's like this is a really scary process for some people. Like, and they take each question very, very seriously and they want to give the best answer they possibly can because this is their child, this is their student, and they just want them to get support.
I hope
And
so.
so
I hope so.
but so, like when we're just like, oh, they're just a bunch of questions, just answer them because we give them all the time. It's like to that
hmm
parent or that teacher, it's like each question is so, so important to them. So I try to keep that in mind and answer those questions with patience and care
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
it becomes so routine for us that we don't realize that like asking someone, did your child set fire to things or, is cruel to animals or whatever, that
Right.
hearing that question is like, oh my gosh, what do they think about my child? Why are they even asking
Exactly.
me this?
Why are you sending me this survey that asks about these things? And also it goes to the like trust piece too. Like I don't know you, right? Like if I'm a parent and you're my child's school psychologist evaluating them, I don't know you. What are you going to be saying about my child? Like what are you why are you asking these things? What are your intentions, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
not a super great relationship, I would say, always between families and schools. And there's kind of this notion out there that schools don't really care about the kids
Hmm.
and it's just a job, right? Like when the school psych doesn't want to evaluate, it's not because we don't want to evaluate, or at least I certainly hope there aren't psychologists out there doing it for that reason, but it's because we don't feel the data is there. It's not appropriate at this time. But
Hmm.
like you said, on the other side is that understanding that there's a parent or staff member who is really concerned about a kid. And that doesn't mean you should evaluate if it's not appropriate, but that empathy and not just getting annoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the kind of conversations like I love. And that's what my whole account is built off of. It gets so easy to just be in your bubble with your point of view and seeing things from your lens as either a parent or a teacher or a psych or whoever you are. So I think it's good to remind ourselves frequently that there is another person coming from a different perspective and that we have to be aware of that.
Yeah. And hopefully you have people coming in with good intentions from all parties. And that's not always the case either, but you want to assume
Yes.
and practice as a school psychologist, like everyone does have good intentions and you come with good intentions. Even when my caseload is through the roof, anytime I'm in a referral meeting, I close that door in the back of my mind, push that to the back, and I'm there to talk about that student because it's not fair to that kid that your district, maybe doesn't have enough school psychologists so they don't get help because you're too stressed. Like, no, that's another conversation, right? I'm not saying you should have to work your life off. That it is the district's responsibility, but at the end of the day, trying to remember like this is about, does this kid need additional services or not? Not,
Yeah.
do you have time to do this evaluation?
Yes. And that, yeah, another discussion totally, but that's another, hard part of our job is balancing that.
Yeah, we just got to remember it. It is hard when we're stressed. So, you were talking about how you were a teacher before, and
Mhm.
you referenced a little bit that it helped you understand more. Like, tell us more about that. Do you feel like it was really helpful to be a teacher before? Were you not a teacher long enough before? Like, how do you think it impacts your work?
Yeah, I think that my experience as a teacher has really shaped me as a school psychologist, especially when it comes to consultation and working directly with teachers. I will say, I wasn't a teacher for that long. And so I have to understand there's limitations to how much I really can empathize with teachers. And it's been a while since I was a teacher, too. Also, teachers that went through COVID being a teacher, they have a whole
Mm,
different experience than I ever had as a teacher. And, seeing the aftermath of that and working with kids that have gone through that, like I will never be able to truly empathize with them. But I do think it is helpful, like, especially when I'm talking about accommodations and behavioral supports in class. Like, I always try to meet teachers where they're at and what are you doing right now and how we can build off of that instead of just, you know, giving them a whole new system
hmm
and expecting them to take data like they don't have a million other things to do. And I have been very cautious of that because I know as a teacher, being expected to take frequency data every 30 seconds, like I've heard people suggest that and it's like, are you kidding? And teachers,
hmm
like
hmm
laugh about that about us because they're like,
I'm
how on
sure.
earth do you expect me to do that?
Everyone is stretched thin in public education. And I think it's really cool that you had experience as a teacher because you understand that on a deeper level. Like, one thing I say, and everyone probably feels this way, is like a lot of people don't know what a school psychologist is, even in the school setting. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know really who we are and what we do. But I feel like a lot of different staff members don't understand each other's job or like fully like the stressors of it and all the different pieces that go into it. The psychs aren't always understanding, like, okay, this is what you were told in grad school is best practice. And it's probably true, but
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the real life. So you got to meet them where they're at, like you're saying. When the teacher knows that you were also a teacher, do you ever find that helps build a bit more of a connection or that they feel like you understand them a little bit more?
Yeah, and I try to let like them know that I had experience teaching kindergarten in the beginning of the school year every year, which I won't be doing this year, but I always spend like the first at least day or two with the kindergartners because I know that's a really, really hard
Oh,
transition. And so I think I give them that at the beginning of the year so they know that I'm there for them. I want to
Yeah.
support them. But yeah, anytime in consultation, I'll say like, oh, this is something that I did when I was a teacher. I don't know if that would be helpful for you, whatever. So I try to
Hmm.
sneak it in there because I do know that
Hmm.
they appreciate it. But again, I try not to like oversell the fact that I was a teacher because I don't
Right.
want them to think like, oh, I know exactly how you feel because I do not.
Right.
So
You're not coming at it obviously like, well, I was a teacher, so you should be able to do this, or
yeah,
I know like this is feasible and this is what you need to do. It's more just like, hey, I get where you're coming from and I'm trying to work with you here.
yeah.
What is your favorite type of work to do as a school psychologist?
Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. My favorite.
Like if you had all the free time, let's say like your caseload was completely manageable and you had
Mm,
free time, what would you choose to spend your time doing?
this might sound ridiculous, but my favorite type of work to do is presenting in IEP meetings. Like, if I had all the time in the world, that's not what I would be doing. But I think like where I feel the most effective and my best self is when I'm in the meeting explaining my results in a way that the parent is understanding, the teacher is finding value from, the rest of the team is able to take my information and use it to support what they're doing as well. Like that, like I feel most like alive as a school psychologist when I'm doing that well. So I'd say like
Yeah.
presenting my results and helping people know what to do with those results.
I think that's an amazing thing to choose. I don't think it's like silly
okay.
in any way. And, I think even if you did have all the free time, it would give you more time to spend like working towards your presentations and like not
Mm,
feeling rushed in those meetings and stuff. And I think that is a super important part of our job. If people don't understand how to help the kid, then the kid's not going to get help.
right.
And a lot of times people aren't going to ask questions and say that they don't understand what we're presenting. And I think that goes back to like the different personalities of not just psychs, but all the staff members involved as we go through this every day. It's routine to us, like all the jargon, we know it off the top of our head, but not everyone else does. And they're not going to stop every 5 seconds to say, and what is that acronym? And what is this? And what is
Hmm.
that? So I love that you do that. And I know that you spend your time also on your account, like trying to create resources for people to be able to use in meetings like that with families and teachers.
Yeah, and I have again being a bilingual school psychologist, I have a lot of families that speak Spanish that were having IEPs and sometimes when I was in my last school which was bilingual, there would be the teacher, the admin, everybody spoke Spanish, so we would just do the meeting in Spanish. But other times, there is an interpreter. I want to make sure that the parents get the most out of the meeting possible and it's really a shame that our reports are not always translated into Spanish. And so that's why, I
Yeah.
created some of the resources I did because if you're not going to have a whole report in Spanish to take home, I want you to at least have something that represents what we talked about. And so that's why I have one of my resources in Spanish. So there's like a little takeaway that I can explain in the meeting and they can have. But also not even just in Spanish. I think for parents, a lot of times that speak English, the report is not necessarily the most useful thing. We have to have it
Mhm.
and someone might read it, but not always. and so I think
So
that
sad,
I
so
know I
sad.
know. So I do think like having like a one page kind of handout visual something that they can
Yeah.
be told about in the meeting and then take home with them is a really valuable thing. And I think it speaks to how I said, like, that's my favorite thing to do is make sure they really understand it. And I think that's why I created that resource because I noticed that people weren't always understanding. And it's like, why did I do all this work if people aren't going
Mhm,
to
mhm.
take value from it?
Oh, yeah, and I think that sometimes gets lost in the thick of, like, all our tasks and the stress of our huge caseload is, like, just getting the job done. At the end of the day, like, these are families, we need to make sure they're understanding this. I know it's hard to take the time, but that's why, people out there like you and me, we're out here creating resources so that you don't have to spend the time recreating the wheel and you can just grab and go, and it helps you explain it to families better. So I love that you do that. And I love even more that you create that for people.
Yeah, thank you. I feel really
Yeah.
good about the fact that I was like putting something out there that I use that I could share with people because I wouldn't,
Right.
make something and try to sell it to anybody that I didn't use myself. So I've had people say, like, I'm interested to see what you come up with that's like specifically high school. And so, like, my
Mhm.
brain is like swirling with, like, okay, what kind of things are good for high school? So I'm thinking, like, things for the actual student to take and be able to know
Mhm.
about themselves. So, because I'm
Mhm.
really excited, actually, one of the things I'm most excited about is that high school students a lot of times are way more involved in their IEP meetings.
Oh
And
yeah.
I want them to leave the meeting with the same feeling that I hope to have the parents and the teachers leave the meeting with, that they understand themselves and feel like they can advocate for themselves. And,
Mhm.
I hope
Yeah.
to come
You're
up
going
with
to
something for
find
that.
you're going to find that it's really like with everything very student dependent. You're going to have some students who are very involved and like can speak well about what they want, what they don't want. They can advocate, they want to advocate, and then you're going to have some students who are like, I want to be as far away from this as possible. I wish I didn't even know that I had
Mm,
this. Or some parents who try to prevent the student from knowing, which is, in my opinion, not really the best thing once they're in high school. But that's with anything. I'm sure you experience that with your families when you're explaining your results too. You have some families that have questions and really want to understand, and others that are like, just give me the report, tell
right.
me if they're getting help or not, goodbye. Right.
Yeah.
And but it's amazing to have a resource like that. So I'm actually looking forward to, even though I'm not in the school anymore right now, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you create, because I think that will be awesome for kids to understand in a way that doesn't make them feel negative about the
Totally.
special education process, but gives them, like, empowers them and the confidence to understand how to advocate for themselves.
Yeah, I know the more I talk about it, the more I get excited about being in high school. So I have a positive attitude. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think that that could be such a powerful thing, where I can step in and support students. And at the end of the day, I always think about, like, it's the students' education, it's their life. So they're the ones that matter the most out of anybody in this. And, the parents can help them as much as they want, the teachers can help them as much as they want. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to the student whether or not they really benefit from the services and utilize them and where they take them.
Oh yeah, it's a different world. Going back to school psychology never being boring, like, same job, but in other ways, completely different job.
Hmm.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
I think I told you on your story when you were setting up your high school office. I was like, oh, I'm having FOMO. Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely know that for myself and my family, staying home with my son is the right decision, and I'm so happy and grateful. But I also, like, I'm seeing school starting up again, and right now I'm just like, oh, I miss that. I miss the excitement of, like, the fresh year and getting organized. So I'll live vicariously through you, because I think we're similar in a lot of ways.
Yes, and I'll probably be like messaging you about certain high school things. So look
Yeah.
out for that because I'll need your help, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. I was planning maybe like an hour max for our call, but we're already hitting that mark. And I'm like, wait, I didn't get through like half of my questions, but I knew that was going to happen, because
Yeah.
whenever we get talking, we just like, we go. But I want to ask you more questions. So I'm going to ask a little bit more, but if you have to go, let me know. And we can always like jump on another time for another episode or do another live, anything like that.
I am good. I blocked off my morning for you. So
Okay.
whatever you want to
Thank
ask
you.
me.
Okay. So if you weren't a school psychologist, what would you be? I guess not a teacher.
You know what? It's funny. I think I might be a professor, which is like related to school psychology. So I don't know if that's a cop out of an answer, but like I have thought about eventually being a professor or doing some sort of like training of other school psychologists in some capacity. I think that that would be really rewarding to me to like be able to, and I feel like I kind of do that a little bit on my account, but
Oh,
just
definitely.
sharing what I
Yeah.
know and inspiring people to keep going in this career and learn more. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why we do what we do on our accounts, right? It's like essentially it is educational content. So another reason you might like high school, like you're working with more adult like people here.
It'll be
So
a test to see how I do
yeah. And what do you like to do in your free time? So like let's put school psychology aside for a moment.
in my free time. Well, I
Yeah,
spent
all the free time that you have
I
outside of
know.
summer.
What's that? I can say what I did over the summer. I like so when I have nothing to do, I tend to, be outside as much as possible. the place I moved to across the Golden Gate Bridge, so now I'm in Marin County. It's super beautiful. There's like hikes and nature and water and mountains and everything. So I like to spend a lot of time outside. I just got a new puppy,
Oh yeah.
Moose, and so that being his mom is like something I do a lot on the outside. So we were training him, taking him on walks, taking him to the dog park. One fun
You were
thing
gonna have him as a therapy dog at one point.
I know.
Sorry, I know, sore spot.
I know. So we'll see. I'm gonna try to work every angle I can. Someone actually told me that there was like a Facebook group about animal assisted interventions, and like they give you tips on how to propose it to your
Mm.
district if they are saying
Mm-hmm.
no.
You
So
know what? High school, if you're gonna get in somewhere, high school might really be the place
mm,
because like they're, more of that emotional support for teenagers when they're like really upset.
yeah, I mean,
I
and
do think.
I know everybody thinks like their dog is the best, but like my dog, he's just a puppy and he's so calm. He's so like, he's hypoallergenic, he's small.
Right.
And so I do think that he would be a great therapy dog. So I haven't given up hope yet, but that is a no for now. And I didn't want to come in like
Yeah.
guns blazing to a new setting and be like fighting them about it. So I'm
I'm
gonna
bringing my dog.
yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'll let them get to know me a little bit better. Maybe like sneak Moose in on some non-student days so everyone can know him. But anyway, the other cool thing that I do that I've shared a little bit about is I made this like club with my girlfriends. It's called the Renaissance
Oh
Women's Club.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
That's
know
so
it's
cool.
like
Tell us about it.
so it's like another, nerdy thing, I guess, but it's fun. We do different topics, but I don't know where I got this idea from. I think that one of my friends, when they were home for the holiday, they had every one of their like family members come with a PowerPoint presentation about like something. And I was like, that's so funny. And so me and my girlfriends, we all have very different jobs. And so it started out with PowerPoint presentations once a month about like something about what they do. And so like I did my first one on like behavior intervention, which like some of my friends that are moms, like they could then utilize it for that. Some of them like use it in their relationship with their dog, all different things. But
Yeah.
anyway, so like every month one of us hosts and the person that hosts does their PowerPoint presentation on whatever topic they choose. Now they're getting a little bit more fun. We did like pickleball last month, and so I learned how to play pickleball. Someone did like how to buy a house in the Bay Area,
Oh
just like different
wow.
topics. How to invest. I like a couple years ago we did how to get started investing, and that's when I started investing in the
A
stock
couple
market.
years ago.
I know I was a
Brianna,
little
how long
late.
has this been going on?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
how
thought
long
you
has
were
this
going to
been going
shame me
on?
for not starting to
No, no,
invest.
no, 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 no. I want to know how long you guys have been doing this. My gosh.
So
That's amazing. I'm jealous.
thanks. I mean, like when I commit to something, I really commit to it. I think you could probably tell this about me, but I've had it now with two different groups of girls. So it was like before COVID, then COVID happened and that like it fell off for like a year, and then we
Mm-hmm.
restarted it up again about a year ago. Current group has been doing it for a year, and it's every month, and it's I think there are five of us, and so it rotates, and we all go to each other's houses, and we kick the boyfriends and husbands out for the night, and it's just a
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
time to learn
Friend
and just
time.
be friends. Yeah, so that's my
Do
other hobby.
you, yeah, well, I mean, come on, that's spending time with your friends, but in a really fun way that
Yeah,
helps make sure that you guys are meeting. Because it's really easy with life as an adult, us oldies here,
yeah.
to feel like you're too busy and your schedule is not meeting up. I'm going to ask you one more question about this because I think it's so fabulous. Not the point
Thanks.
of our call, but do you guys vote like on a topic beforehand? Do you know what the topic's going to be, but like when you're going to that monthly meeting, or is it a surprise?
So it depends on how much time the person has to prepare. Like in the beginning, I had a ton of different topics that I said, like, tell me which one sounds the most interesting to you, because I think a lot of topics are interesting, but I want them to also care about my presentation. So I would give them some
Mm-hmm.
options. But then, like, sometimes we're busy and it's just like, I'm presenting on this. And we're always happy to learn anything. And sometimes it's shorter than others. And then we just like talk and have snacks and whatever. But we try to give each other options. But if not, we find out either the day
You just
before
come
or
and
the
yeah.
day of.
That's so fun. I love that. Do you want to know what our common theme is here for you, Brianna?
What?
If you haven't figured it out about yourself, presenting.
I do like
Presenting.
presenting.
Presenting information. Yeah.
I've
No, and you're
always,
good at it. That makes
I've,
sense.
it's funny because like my parents would say, like, I've always loved an audience. So I guess these are just like new ways for me to get audiences, like
Oh,
created an
no.
Instagram
No,
because
no, no. I'm going to keep saying how similar we are because I really believe that. I know we even talked about like our ethnicities and stuff like that. I lost my train of thought, so I'm going
that's
to
okay.
let that go. No, I want it to come back to me though. This is what happens when you're a sleep deprived mom. Okay, get ready for it one day.
Yeah, I heard
Um,
about mom brain. Is that what they call it?
yeah, so apparently there's pregnancy brain and
Mm,
then it just turns into mom brain. I didn't like when people told me that was going to
mm,
happen, but I yeah, I don't know if it's mom brain or if it's just like 6 months of chronic sleep deprivation. Could
mm.
be either,
Yeah, I'm sure there's
but
like
hey, there's nothing
hormone
like it.
stuff.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, your brain and body want you to be focused on your kid, nothing
Mm.
else. Anyways, I think yeah, I don't think that it's you just wanting an audience. I think you enjoy connecting with other people and you have all this, I'm going to speak for myself, right? Is that you have all this information in your head. I think by talking out loud, first of all.
Me too.
And yeah, and it's a way to build connections and you're passionate and excited about things and you probably like to talk a lot. I like to talk a lot. We're both talking a lot here. And so like that is presenting, right? Like connecting, talking, sharing, excitement. Yeah.
Totally.
All right. A little rant about that. How do you find the time to manage running Educationally Psyched and be a school psychologist during the school year?
Ooh, I remember school psych memes had a similar answer to what I'm about to say. Like, I don't do it very well. And that's something I'm really like focused on this year too, is having a better balance. But, it's really important to me to like answer everybody's messages when they message me, respond to every comment. And that can be a lot. It takes a lot of time to go through all of that. And so I do think like I'm a big, as you are too, big into organization and like scheduling and things. So I think like for better work-life balance, I might, have a set time. Like this is the time where I answer all my DMs for the day. And if I don't get to them, I'll do it the next day. Something like that. I do think I could do a better job of balancing it. It is a lot, but also, it's work. The account is a lot of like joy and fun for me. So it doesn't feel like work. So I don't want to lump it all in that same category. So one of the things I'm focusing on is having a better cutoff of work, like actual job work during the day and really having time after work to do things, which includes running my account. And so one of the things that everybody suggested to me was to take work email off of my phone. And so I did that. It's been 1 week of that so far, and it's already very hard for me. But I'm learning, again, being a people pleaser, that even if I don't get to someone's email until the next morning, they're not going to be mad at me. And if they are mad at me, that's more of a them thing to figure out because answering the next morning, if you send a late email, you can't really expect to get a response right away. And if there is an
Oh,
emergency,
totally.
you can call me if you know my number.
If there is an emergency after hours, I hate to say it, but it's not our job. We're not
Also, that.
paid for that. But it's hard because, we're in this career and profession because we like to help. We're helpers. We want to help people. We
Mm,
want to be there for people. But at the end of the day, we have to also be there for ourselves.
totally.
So I
And
think that's a good decision to try to set that boundary for yourself. If you're someone that like if it's on your phone, you're going to be checking it and you're going to reply even though you're like, oh, I shouldn't, but I want to and I'm going to.
I feel like you're probably similar to me about this, but it's like if I have any notification on my phone, I can't leave it. Like that little red
Mhm.
circle with a one on it, I have to make it go away. So that's
Mhm.
with emails too. Like if I can't just see that I have an email and not open it. Even if I don't,
Right.
and then someone's like, oh, well, you can just not respond till the next day after reading it. I'm like, no, because I'll forget about it.
Yeah, what I used to do, and this is not good advice because I think the best advice is to just have that boundary and not have it on your phone, is I would mark it as unread if it's
Mm,
late at night, or you can schedule an email to be sent out at a certain time. So like maybe I'm replying to it, but it's not going to be sent out till 8 a.m. the next morning. Because another thing is it's not just a boundary for yourself, which that should be the main reason, but you're also helping to set boundaries to other people for yourself. Is like, you can email me at 8 o'clock at night, but I don't want them to get into this habit of thinking like, oh, Briana is available at any time, because you're
Hmm.
not. It is a job. Like, yes, it's a profession where you're helping people and you're there for them and you provide support, but you are also a person outside of your district and school psychology.
I know. I need to remember that is for better work-life balance. You have to remember that you're a person and this is a job.
It's hard because especially if you're someone like us, you're really passionate about it. I mean, look at us. So asking you what you like to do in your free time, and you're sitting here telling me, I like to create more school psychology content, right? Like it's hard to be a person outside of that when you're
Yeah.
and you don't have to completely separate it. It's okay to be passionate about that and enjoy learning about it outside of work. But those work emails, even if you're not responding, like they're in the back of your mind,
Oh yeah.
whether
Yep.
you know it or not. So
And
I
then
think
out of
it'll be
sight, out
good.
of mind. I don't want to see it, and then I won't think about it, and then I come in the morning and I can deal with it then
It will be
while I'm on
okay.
the clock.
Yes, I agree. All
Yes.
right. Last thing I want to do with you is a quick would you rather, like school psychology edition.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
ready.
Would you rather do FBAs or BIPs?
Ooh, BIPs. I think that I would say FBA if the BIP is hard to create based off of what I know, but I'm more of a person that likes to interpret the data and do something with it than gather the data. And I feel
Okay.
like an FBA is a lot of like gathering the data and in the
If
weeds
you can get it. Yeah.
if you can get it. Well, yeah, true. The behavior plan is really what is the takeaway of it that
Right.
people use, and that is going to be what's the support for that student. And so I'd probably prefer to be on that end of it so I can see like the direct
That makes
result of the
sense.
data.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And also like probably presenting I don't mean that in a funny way, but presenting and explaining like how this is going to help.
Mhm.
Would you rather do testing, evaluations, or counseling?
I would rather test younger kids and counsel older kids.
What about if it was regardless of the age? Do you have a preference on counseling versus testing? Like you could get your testing with younger kids and counseling with older kids. Which one would you rather do?
Probably testing.
How
Yeah.
come?
I just feel like it's the bread and butter of being, I know we're so much more than test machines, like we always say that. But I do think that is in order to present the results that I love presenting so much, I really need to do that kind of testing and do the evaluation process. And so
Yeah.
I really feel like as a school psychologist, that really fires me up because I feel like we have this unique skill set. Not that counseling isn't a unique skill set, but I do think that
I know what you
other
mean.
professions can do the counseling too. And
Yeah.
we really are the only ones that do that evaluation
Don't
in
feel
that
bad
way.
about liking testing. I know that like it's hammered and drilled into us so much everywhere. Like you're not just a testing machine, but you
Mm,
can still love testing and enjoy a role that is just testing if you get one. I mean, it is a huge part of our job. I think it's just there are other things we're trained in and that the stress of the timelines with testing, right? It's like
mm,
you don't need to just be a testing machine. It's
yeah.
okay to love testing though.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I just want to be sure that it's like, I know we can do more than that. And I like
Mhm.
that we can do
Mhm.
more than that. But I do
And you
really
don't
like
want
that
to
part.
only test, but
Right.
if since I asked you that question,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you when you report right, do you prefer it to be quiet or to have like music or something in the background?
I think we actually like laughed about this one time because I told you I like close the door and draw the shades and like kind of dance. Wow. I think I like we were like
Oh,
messaging about this
yeah.
because I have like a little like concert more or less in my room because I'll have like a whole day blocked off for like report writing and I will
That's
just get in the
wonderful.
zone and I will play like and I'm very specific about what kind of music. Like it can't have lyrics. It usually is like, to be honest, like EDM. And I think like that just like zones me in, like the tempo kind of like you sync up with the tempo a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have like more like you can have different types of EDM. So maybe it's like really trancy or something, or maybe it's more like tropical or whatever some other days. So the
You and school psych
lyrics,
memes need a concert report writing like session together. You could both
I
like
know.
jam out to music.
I
I feel
heard
like it would be distracting though.
Oh, we would absolutely just talk the whole time. I can't be with anybody when I'm report writing. It's
Yeah.
like alone in my room. But then like I'll notice while I'm like typing, I'll just be like dancing, especially because I had a standing desk this year. So I'm just like dancing while I'm typing. And if anyone ever walked by, they would be so alarmed at what I was doing. But it helps
Oh,
you just
no,
get in the zone.
yeah. Do you have like a playlist you keep on your computer?
Yeah, and I was actually sharing that on my account, and people were like, "Share the playlist, share the playlist." And I was like, I feel like music is so personal, and I
It
didn't
is,
want people to
yeah.
like think things about me based off my
Right.
music. So I was like
Right.
really hesitant to share it. But yeah, I have a playlist. I add to it all the time. But
That's
no
cool.
lyrics because I would sing. I love singing, and there's that moment where you're singing and you're typing, and then
Oh my
your
gosh,
brain like
yes.
crosses wires, and you start
Yes.
writing the lyrics. So no lyrics.
Yeah. Or talking to someone and trying to type and
Yes,
then yeah,
exactly.
alone time, definitely.
Hmm.
If you had to pick a favorite IQ test, now this doesn't mean it's the IQ test that you think would be appropriate for like all students or all
Mm.
families by any means, but which one do you enjoy giving or do you enjoy interpreting the most?
I love the KABC. My love for the KABC has been talked about a lot. I just think it's really fun. I know that there are a lot of pieces to it, which a lot of psychs
Hmm.
don't like because you're constantly using
Doing
manipulatives
stuff.
and yeah, it's like it. But for me, like I get a lot of enjoyment of having like a specific flow for doing things where I'm like writing with one hand and moving objects with the other hand, and I just feel really like successful when I'm able to do that very
Hmm.
smooth and with the
We
timer
are
and all the things.
multitaskers. Yes,
And
yes, we are.
I just think it's really fun. And especially because I've mostly worked with elementary, like I just feel like it's the
Right.
most fun for them. I feel
Yeah.
cool giving it. And it's a pretty good test for culturally diverse students.
Yeah. And I would ask if you're type A or type B, but like, come on.
I
Come on.
don't think you
Do we
need to
just do we
ask.
need the answer to that? Do we need the answer to that at this point? Okay, last question. Would you rather work at one school or multiple schools?
I would have said two schools before because I did like being able to switch between them and have the flexibility to disappear a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've been at one school now. I was at one school last year and I just really loved it because I made my office like my home and I could put like so much energy into it. And it was like everything I needed was always right there. When you have more than one office, it's like you don't know where things are sometimes, or you have to live out of your
Yeah.
car. So,
Yeah.
and then it's really special to like build those bonds with your team. And when you're at multiple schools, it's a lot harder to really
Oh
get
yeah.
into the groove, or you're always switching like, oh, with this team, I do it this way. With this team, I do it this way. So I say one school.
Yeah.
That would be the dream, I think, to always only be at one school. But that's not the
I
case
agree with
always.
you. Yeah, no, and not all school psychologists want to be at one school. And that's why I asked the question. On the surface, it seems like why would you want more than one school? But there are lots of pros to it. But I agree with you, one school, really because the depth you can go to in every different domain if you
Hmm.
can put everything into one area. And work-life balance, you can leave your stuff at work and
Hmm.
it'll be there the next day. You don't
Hmm.
have to take it home.
Exactly.
Any future plans for Educationally Psyched that you're thinking about right now that you would want to share?
Just what I said about like creating resources specifically for high school students, like that's where my mind is going right now. I feel so awful because I started all this like energy around dynamic assessment this last year because it was something that I had learned in my program that most programs don't cover at all. And so I hunted
No.
down a test kit for it that was really hard to get and is only for people that have been trained in it. And so I talked to my professor about like potentially us collaborating on training for people because there was a lot of interest in that training. That dream hasn't died. So I won't say that that has died. It's just been
It's
kind of
not
like,
dead yet.
actually, my professor was at NASP this year. He like talked about our plans for it and we talked about presenting at the next NASP. But the next NASP is like a week before my wedding. And so I was
Oh,
like, maybe I could make it work because, I always want to do everything. And she's like,
yeah.
don't do that to yourself. That sounds like an awful
Yeah.
idea. We kind of lost momentum after that because we really wanted to
Yeah.
present and like get it going. But I'm
It'll
still
still
in
happen.
contact with her.
Knowing you, yeah, it'll still happen. Maybe just not as quickly as you originally wanted, but I think it'll still happen.
Yeah, and we were talking
Yeah.
about like me maybe lecturing one day or whatever. I do see that as maybe something for the future, maybe a few years down the line, but being able to go to programs or school districts and teaching them about dynamic assessment, training them or something like that.
That
But
would be cool.
that's a little
Yeah.
farther off of a dream.
I know I said it was the last question, but I can't help myself. What about private practice? Are you hoping to ever go into private practice?
So I have my license. In California, you can get what's known as an LEP, licensed educational psychologist. You have to be a psych for at least 2 years, and then you take a test. You have to fill out all this paperwork. So it was like a lot of work to get it. And I got it last summer, and I have done literally nothing with it. And I feel really guilty about that. But I was thinking, like, oh, I'll pick up some private evaluations or some IEs on the side. And I just never did that. But I do think, like, something like that, maybe even like one day a week or over the summer. I would love to
Right.
do private evaluations within the
How
next
long does
year.
that license last?
I think you have to just like renew it. You might have to send in
Okay.
money. I don't think that and I think you have to have continuing education credits. Like you might
Right.
just have like kind of like your NCSP, you have to renew it, but
Yeah.
I don't think I have to take like a test ever again unless I let it
Okay.
lapse.
So it's something in your back pocket. Like you have it, you've got it out of the way. You don't have to use it right this moment, but if you ever decide to, it's good to
Yeah.
have, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do see using it in some capacity. That's why I got it. I wouldn't have gotten it if
Right.
I didn't see that. But yeah, I do hope to do something with it in the next year.
Yeah. Or you could end up being like part-time private, part-time lecturing, like
I
part-time social
know.
media. So many opportunities.
I know. I do have to think about it. It's something that's on my mind, but right now I just my heart is in the public school system and
Right.
I feel like I have a lot of good work I can do there. What's great about being a psych is that because the allocations for certain schools are not full time, like it is somewhat flexible to say like I'm going to keep this school that's only 3 days a week and I'm just not going to take a
Hmm.
second school and you can pay me just for that 3 days and then on the private practice 2 days.
Yeah. Well,
So
and a lot of people are going into contract work as well. I don't know a ton about it. I think you get paid a lot better, but the problem, in my opinion, from what I've heard, is it's mostly testing and meetings because that's what schools like have to get done. And I really love the connections, but it's great. There's a lot of different avenues and opportunities as a school psychologist that I think people are now just starting to become aware about. And really COVID and the virtual opportunities opened up a whole new world as well.
totally. And my friend, also on Instagram, Juliana, the bilingual school psych, she has a whole program about that where she's teaching psychs to be independent because she does contracting with school districts and that's so cool. And so I've talked to her a lot about it. And, that is a potential possibility for me, but I keep telling her I'm not ready yet, but soon and we'll talk. I know she has so much information about that. So I'll need her guidance when I step into that arena.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess, kind of full circling back here to social media. Is That's the greatest thing about this social media platform that you've built, that we're all building in school psychology, is like those connections that you wouldn't have made before if you were
Hmm.
just on your own little island in your district at your school. I love being able to connect and learn from other psychs because when else do you really get to learn from other psychs after grad school? It's very
Yeah.
hard. You don't get to see how other people do things. So I love being on social media for school psychology. And I love that I got to meet you and
Me
have you come on the
too.
podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Where can people reach out to you if they want to find you?
The best place is my Instagram. So again, it's at Educationally Psyched. I'm Briana. If you send me a message, I will respond or comment on a post, I'll respond. So if
I'm
you
only
want to
laughing
find,
because you said you can't help but have to reply to all of them and you get
I
so
do.
many.
I think there's only been like a few that I haven't responded to when they're like very spammy about like,
Hmm.
I don't know. And,
Hmm.
sometimes people are asking for a full consult about something and that's,
Right.
ethically I can't do that. So. But other than
Yeah.
that, I'll respond to everybody.
All right. On Instagram. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.